You're a bit of an achiever, to put it mildly. You call races. You've been interviewed or contributed to quite a few publications, including but not limited to Moto Insiders, Retro Motive, Auto Guru, Driven Women, Road Rider, Business Review Weekly, Femo Economy. Look, the list goes on. You've called Summonats, 400 Thunder Pro Drag Racing, Springmount, Willowbank, Tropical Meltdown, and the Tablelands Car Meets. Love that local stuff. You're a writer. You're a master of ceremonies. You've got a great little YouTube channel yourself. And you're the Chief Executive Officer of Far North Food Incubator, which is way cool. Now, that's a considerable skill set and achievement on a number of different metrics and levels. Tell us about you and tell us about your passion and tell us about what drives you.
This is an awkward question, and we've been discussing it previously on how do you put that in a nutshell? So my core passion is passionate people. At the end of the day, I love working with anyone who just gets super, super excited. Like, I want to work with obsessive people. I want to work with completely irrational, unreasonable people who just don't understand why you can't get this excited about it. And when I come across, I spent the weekend with a friend and his new girlfriend, and she's lovely. She's lovely. She's nice. She's so vanilla that you can't hold a conversation. And then on the other spectrum, I have my friend Irene, who shrieks with laughter and joy and just contributes 110% to every single conversation. And to the point where people will just be sitting back going, whoa, like, how do I take all this in? Those are my people. And so I've worked a lot in the car industry. I love cars. I personally love cars. And I can't explain it. It's not a rational thing. It's not a reasonable thing. I can't tell you why I love one car more than another. I own 7 cars. And the reason is because I will be driving along and I will just say, oh my gosh, we're in love. Like my caddy. I just saw it on Facebook Marketplace in Brisbane. I'm like, we're gonna meet and we're gonna fall in love together and you're gonna be with me for a very long time. And my friends at the time were like, what? I'm like, why? It's just a car. It's all the way in Brisbane. I went, you just watch. Fate will bring us together. And I was coming home. I'd done Summonats and I'd done the New Year's Eve Thunder at Willowbank commentary. And on my way home, I was like, I'm in the neighborhood of the caddy. It'd be rude not to stop and say hello. Anyway, an hour later, I own a Cadillac Coupe de Ville and she's coming home with me and we're in love. And there's no logic, right? There is no logical reason anyone would buy a 1976 Cadillac Coupe de Ville in that condition unless it was pure love.
Well, see, I mean, that's the thing. It's kind of ironic because many of the people I speak to, this sort of obsessive compulsiveness comes up. And I've actually spoken to a couple of mental health experts, and we haven't delved as deep into the subjects as I like. But when does a passion become obsessive compulsive? And when does a healthy interest, and when does it become a mental illness? Because if you want to win a Nobel Prize in whatever it is field, let's pick some sort of scientific endeavor, because that's what we associate it with. Dude, and I know some people that are at the top of their field in this sort of endeavor. Like they live it. They get up in the morning before they're eating their cereal, they're doing the stuff, they're just going right through it. It is their life. They are obsessive compulsive about it. And if it was anything else or something unhealthy, that would definitely be categorized as a mental illness. And I mean that. Like, you would be sitting down, and this includes, incidentally, look, I have had psychiatrists and psychologists say this, and this is, I'm paraphrasing an interview I had with a psychiatrist just recently, incidentally, because he's passionate about music. So yeah, like, we don't really know though, like, what's the difference between someone who's passionate and someone who's mad?
So I saw an interview recently with Elon Musk's first wife, and they said to me, what's so special about him? How can he do all of these things? And she said, because he's completely obsessive. And it's not a good thing, because he's obsessive to the point where his health fails, his relationship fails, his world falls apart, but he is obsessive on that level. And again, groundbreaking stuff. This is something I've never actually confessed in public before. I've been doing motorsport commentary for quite a few years now. I've done some of the biggest gigs in Australia. I've done Fox Sports, I've done KO, I've done the major drag racing tracks, Sydney, Brisbane, Springmount, etc. I've done Summer Nats, I've done the biggest burnout comps in Australia. I've done a lot of car shows. I've competed in Targa. I don't like motorsport. I will never ever compete. One, I'm a particularly slow driver. Like I've been out on a racetrack in a speedway car driving and go-karts overtook me. I am stupidly slow as a driver. But more than that, I am so sooky about my cars. I won't let them sleep outside. I want to love my cars and I want to enjoy them. I don't ever want to see how fast they can really go. I don't ever want to blow up a motor. And so motorsport it's always a twisted relationship for me, because on the one hand, I don't like motorsport. I don't want to get excited about someone spending $200,000 on building a car to go out and kill it in under 2 minutes and be proud of that moment. So that's a conflict. But on the other hand, I want to hang around those glorious, mad beasts of people in motorsport who will go and take $200,000 and build the car of their dreams and then push it to the limit and have it blow up and get out and cheer and go, yes, doing it again. Like those guys, that's that passion. Right? That's that spark of madness that I love being around. So I'm always conflicted in the world of motorsport. And every time I do a motorsport gig, I walk away going, that's it. I can't be here. I'm a tourist. I don't belong in this world because I'm not a motorsport person. But I tell you, I love telling their stories. And I had someone who came up to me at Springmount and they said, you know, Lara, we think that when you do commentary, you're just as excited talking about the grandmother who's out there in her Falcon racing against her grandson as you are about a top fuel car that can, you know, blow your mind. It's like, because I am more excited about the grandma who is completely obsessive and brings her daily driver that she drives to her job every day and comes out to the racetrack and starts laying down 12 and 13 second times. That to me, she is a rock star. Like I am completely and utterly in awe of those people. So this is where my conflict with motorsport comes from, because the sport itself, I would never, ever pay to go and watch the V8 supercars. Could not care less. But let me go in and work with the Formula 4 teams and those juniors who just live and breathe their sport and just want to spend every second minute of passion and madness and obsessiveness. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, brilliant people create brilliant things. But like you said, it's mad brilliancy. So you've got to be madly brilliant to create madly brilliant things. And it seems to me that I know this sounds like a cliche or you know, passionate about passion, but like, it's kind of true. It's that infectious enthusiasm, you know?
Yeah. And like you can't, I want to meet the accountant of someone with a race team and just go, what were you thinking? Telling them that this was a good idea. And I'm sure it is a tax write-off, but how much tax did they have to write off that they're going to drop a couple of $100,000 to do a 6-second pass? Like that's madness from a practical, logical, grown-up adult kind of perspective. But if you've got that madness and that passion, it's such a beautiful spark. You can't let it go.
And that's it. Look, I mean, even with your cars, like I could understand you falling in love with one of those great big American bricks, but like you're not in love with it because it drives fast, it handles well, or even, and I mean, no disrespect to the love of your life, Lara, or it looks, I'm sorry, mea culpa. But like, I still understand like why. I mean, you do look at it and go, wow, that's an awesome piece of machinery and everything. But it's not as if they're practical in the truest sense of the word, especially.
Look, I am the first to put my hand up. That caddy is not a pretty car. Right? she is she is a brute-nosed beast. And it's funny, she doesn't feel fast, but let's say I'm on the Atherton Tablelands and I'm stuck behind a grey Nomad and we're doing 60 and 100 zone. I come to an overtaking lane going uphill. And I punch it, and at no point, you know how like if you get behind the wheel of a Camry, right, and you push that pedal to the floor, you mash in that accelerator, she'll make all sorts of noise and go, oh yes, we're going to go fast, we're going to go fast. The caddy doesn't do that. She almost looks at you and says, oh, would you like to overtake this, would you? No. Just make a cup of tea, I'll take care of that. And you look down and you go, oh, we're doing 120. We're doing 100. This is lovely. And there's no bluster, there's no panic, there's no mayhem. It's just, oh, you'd like to go far? Okay, we will do that now. And it's so polite and civilized and lovely. But she does feel like a wallowing elephant going around a corner. And I jokingly once said she's the perfect car for Targa. But oh my God, what a horrendous car for Targa. But, you know, having said that, I don't have a type. I have the Cadillac, but then my daily driver is an Audi, which I also love to bits. And, you know, it's funny, I'd only ever owned utes. I'm a country girl. I'd owned a lot of two-door cars, and I also believed everything had to be a V8. So I owned a long line of WBs with 308s and 253s, and I owned HJs and HQs and all the Kingswoods. And then I'd had an XR Rage, and I owned a long line of V8 utes, and I loved them. And a guy I knew was working at Toyota, and he said, we just had this car traded in, and I think you should have it. It's a hatchback. And I was like, I do a hatchback. I don't do less than 8 cylinders. There must be 2 cylinders per wheel. That's my rule. And he said to me, look, I'm going to leave it at your place for the weekend. Just go for a test drive, see what you think. And I was really, really sick that weekend. And I walked outside and I thought, I'll go and look in it just to be polite, because I promised him I would. So I went and looked in the Audi, and then I'll just sit in it. And I am in my pajamas. I was sick as a dog. Like I was no phone, no anything, and no shoes. And I thought, I'll just go and sit in it then, just to be polite, because I promised him I'd have a look at it. I sat and I thought, I'll just drive around the block once, just to be polite. I'm not buying a hatchback. That's ridiculous, right? I don't do hatchbacks. I have B&S rigs with 5-poster bull bars and all the gear.
That's not my thing. That's crazy talk. A girl would never buy an Audi. No.
Ridiculous, right? So I went for a drive around the block, and then I thought, well, just to be polite, I'll just go up Gentle Annie. So I did that, and then I thought, well, just to be polite, I'll just go do the Misty Mountains Trail from Ravenshoe through to Miller. And then just to be polite, I'll just check if the Gillies works with it. And then I came home and I'm completely smitten. I still didn't have a phone. I hadn't put on shoes. I was just in my jammies, and I was madly in love, and I have been ever since. So complete opposite of the Cadillac, but just as passionate about it. So yeah, there's no, I have 2 cars that are the same in my little shed, but yeah, there's no rhyme or reason as to why I buy.
But there's no theme, because that was my next question. I mean, is there a theme here, or it's just like, you know, okay.
No, it's just what takes. And so this is something that's hard to explain, because I have friends who are into cars and they are diehard. I am a Ford person.
Yep.
I'm a Holden person. I'm a Chevy person, or I'm a Ute person, or, you know, and I had a 72 Chevy pickup truck that I restored. And everyone started sending me pictures of these monstrous pickup trucks. And I'll be completely honest, it was a very abusive relationship I had with that Chevy. I didn't particularly love it by the end. I was very glad to sell it. I don't ever want to own another one of those. I've done that now. And then I owned it for 20 something years. And when I put it up for sale, I was like, don't be ridiculous. You'll regret it. This is the love of your life. And the second I had decided to sell it, it was like it didn't exist anymore. It was time to go. And I'd moved on to the next love. So it's always hard when people say, you know, yeah, that's, you know, the Caddy's the love of your life. For the right money, I would replace it with something else. It'd be love of my life next week.
Well, I mean, yeah, I kind of like if I was one of your cars, I'd be like emotionally just a wreck and completely and utterly nervous. It's like, now she loves me. And sooner or later, Rolls Royce is going to drive past her an MG. And she's...
Well, you know, I drove an MG hire car last week, and I can guarantee you that's not happening. I don't know how anyone drives an MG with poor mental health, because that thing would tip you over the edge of suicide. God, it's a horrendously bad car.
Oh, but they look beautiful. I love them.
Are we talking new MG?
No.
Old school MG?
The classics, baby. The classics.
Yeah. Okay. So old school MG I could definitely do. Yeah, I did have my eye on one at once, but I was tossing up the Triumph, and I kind of got lost in the choices. But yeah, it's something that people think that if you say you love something, then that's it, you're attached for life. But no, I'm a fickle woman, and my whims and fancies will pass me by.
Oh, I gotta say, look, how do you afford this? Very expensive.
So you know how people have superpowers? Everyone has a superpower. Mine seems to be able to pick what's going to trend years before it trends. So I seem to be able to pick up stuff at that moment, and then I just love it a little and, you know, enjoy it, and then it just seems to come into its prime, and so I flip it and move to the next one. But I know what I know too. Like, I'll never buy a Commodore because I don't know Commodores. I definitely don't do anything plastic bumper apart from the Audi, but the Audi's not a collector's, it's a daily driver. But you know, I had a friend of mine buying a, you know, JDM, very excited about it. I know nothing about JDM, and so I just left him to it. I had no advice to give. I had no opinion on the matter. You've just got to pick. Yeah.
Look, I'd like to go back to some of the characters that you meet in these racing circuits, and we're kind of like, it can be about anyone, but I was thinking more along the lines of drag racing, because most of the drag racing people, they're not sponsored. They're spending huge amounts of their own dosh. They're really, really passionate. So there's going to be that collegiate passion about, oh, you know, have you look at this, and they're showing each other stuff. But they're also highly competitive people. Like, how does that pan out?
Yeah, no, I've there are some rivalries out there, but for the most part, those guys are best. Like, I have seen it, particularly in the burnout scene, I've got to say, two cars going head to head, and there will just come a moment of clarity where one driver says, you know what, Matt, you have the potential to take this out. So I'm going to strip the parts off my car. It will no longer be capable of competing, but I want you to go out there with the best car you have to win. And it's a beautiful moment when that happens. But I've seen it many, many times where people have said, you know what, I can see how much this means to you. I'm willing to pull my car apart so that you can have the parts you need to go out there and win today.
Wow.
And then the next race, they'll hate each other and they'll be back on. But then the one after that, they'll be fine again. So it's all swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, yeah.
I have been, if I ever get a moment, I really want to write like a sitcom TV show, particularly on the burnout scene, because you've all seen, was it Middle Class Bogan or something with the drag racing family? Yeah, I want to do that for the burnout scene. And I have so many stories to tell and so many characters to weave into that. And there is, yeah, when you talk about obsessive sparks of madness and passion, you can't beat burnout people. They leave speedway and drag racing people for dead.
It's really, for going off on a very quick tangent. I don't want to hog this conversation, but like I am still kind of like a little bit involved in orchids, and it's, I wouldn't say a passion of mine, but a very high interest. And for a little while, I was involved in the scene, and the orchid people do not get on with the bromeliad people.
Yeah. Oh,
It's,
if you think, yeah,
it's like Crips or Bloods, baby. It's like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like,
no, if you want to do that,
decide.
my first ever commentary gig, first time I ever picked up a mic at an event, was the New England Wool Expo in Armidale, ironically, and alpaca versus sheep people. Dear God, don't even walk in wearing something alpaca into the sheep area and vice versa, because you will get murdered. It's, everyone has their own little tribal, well, and I love it. Like, I'm just, and then I'll poke the bear because I'm like that. I'm not real smart.
Well, no, I mean, it is kind of like good fun, really.
Yeah.
Look, you must have met some really interesting people. Could you discuss some of the most interesting characters, and also some of the highest profile? They may be the same or mutually exclusive, I don't know. And just talk us through some of that.
Oh, see, now this is a big question, because who do I speak about without their permission? And then what's
well, you don't have to use names. You can just talk about character traits and character.
Oh, if people are truly good characters, you don't need to know their name. You'll know who they are. So it's a bit of a challenge, but yeah, I've met some really interesting people in my time. And some of the things they do with cars, like there was a guy I met at Summonats, not this year, the year before. He had spent $60,000 on building a supercharged 6-cylinder AU Falcon wagon.
Mm-hmm.
Quite possibly one of the ugliest cars of all time. It's the ultimate taxi. So this guy spent 60 grand, and he is so passionate. His name's Michael. He's amazing. And he just loves that wagon. I saw he put it up for sale this week, which is a little heartbreaking for him. I don't know what's going on in his life that he's gotten to that point, but he was so passionate. He went out there and he put so much effort into Summonats. And at the end of it, I was so excited to go up and go, mate, you won the best sex cylinder category. Like, how excited are you? And he was like, this is amazing. It's the best day of his life. And that's so awesome. I said, how are you going to spend your prize money? And he went, there's prize money? Oh my gosh, like they just got better. I was like, yeah, you won $100. Like $60,000 investment, plus that's just what he spent on the car and the motor, not counting what he's spent traveling to events, because you can't just turn up to Summonats. You've got to qualify to be there, and camping and food and fuel and all the rest of it. he won $100, and it was, I could not have given him better news. He was just over the moon, and I thought, you are a blessing, Michael, because it's just,
it makes it all worthwhile. That that Monash made it all worthwhile.
Yeah, it's not about the money, it's about the glory. And I just, yeah, and so then it just brings you so sad then when you talk to people who are like, what's in it for me? You know, before I go and invest my time in this thing, what do I get out of it? And you think, mate, if you don't want to be there, like if I have to pay you to be there, then don't bother. Yeah. I want to be around people who would do this, who would, you know, not only do this, but would give everything to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, because it becomes transactional, and anything that's transactional just like loses its soul and spirit straight away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of not big on the male, you know, I mean, you know, in modern times, it's just not unusual for women to get involved in stuff, really. But having made that qualification, do you think women have a bit of advantage in drag racing? Because there's some champion women drag racers out there who are just kicking bottom.
Yeah, so if you look at the likes of Kelly Betts, I mean, she won big time. We've got some amazing female drag racers. Here's the thing about cars, though, and I upset some people. I used to run car events and I run car shows and so on. They go, oh, you got to have best chicks ute. I would refuse. And I don't understand why I need a best chicks category in anything. My wallet is the same as someone else's wallet. At no point when driving a car has anyone thought, oh, if only I had those other genitals, maybe I'd be able to drive faster right now. Like it's a ridiculous thing. Cars are a wonderful, wonderful sport because there is no strength requirement. So I get that in some sports, if you are larger physically, then yes, you have an advantage. But in motorsport, you don't. Where we do see that women have the advantage is, as a rule, women have better reaction times. As a rule, women are more in tune with their vehicle. And so when we talk to someone like Letitia Chantai, who has been a Summonats Burnout Masters contender a number of times now, her mechanic, Laborio, will tell you that she gives him the best feedback. Out of all of those Burnout Masters cars that he's working on, she is the one who can give the most precise feedback of how that car is performing and what it needs. And so we're finding, and it's the same in the mining industry, they prefer to hire female drivers of the big truck because they take better care and they're more in tune with the machinery. So I think there's that. But I also think deeply ingrained for women is we take responsibility for things a lot more. We are super trained from a young age that we have to be responsible how we look, for how other people react around us. And so we don't break things as much because we're going to be responsible for fixing it.
Yeah.
Whereas men often have this blasé, it's okay, me and the mates will get in and fix it, we'll throw more money at it or whatever it is. Whereas women are slightly more cautious and they will look after things a little bit better because they don't want to be responsible for the breakage.
And look, that actually applies to other things where there isn't strength in the full sense of the word and stuff that appear masculine.
So, I'm very, very grateful that women and men are not exactly the same because everyone brings their own strengths to the party. And, you know, I think men are amazing. They bring so much to our lives and enrich it. But it's a balance. You've got to have the meat and the vegetables.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You do need both. But look, so going into the involvement side of things, how do people get involved in these sports?
You know, it's amazing how many men I've had come up to me over the years and go, motorsport commentary is not hard. I could do that. I'm like, great. If you got the mic, do it. It's all it takes. I can guarantee you right now, if you were out there and you were saying, yes, you know what, I dream of being on the mic and being the circus ringleader for motorsport, go to your local grassroots speedway track, drags track, car show, burnout comp, and say, hey, I've got a story to tell. I want to get on the mic. They will give it to you. Do not do it drunk, please. There is nothing worse as a commentator than when someone gives the mic to a drunk person. It is painful and it's torturous and it's hideous, and just don't ever do that. But also put some thought into it. And this is the thing that makes a good commentator versus someone who can just talk a lot. You're not there just to fill air. as a commentator, you are the only person that every single person at that track listens to. You're the only person that every spectator is listening to, every competitor is listening to, but also every staff member. So you are the circus ringleader, and your job is not to fill air with noise. Your job is to make everyone, every single one of those three categories of people, feel safe and feel like they can have fun and feel entertained, but feel informed. So I was doing commentary once at a drag strip, and there was another commentator who I hadn't worked with before, and he was down on the start line, and there was an accident in the deep end, and all we could see was a cloud of smoke. Right, so I kick in with, look, guys, our professionals are down there. They're taking care of it. I've heard back through the mic that everyone is being taken care of. We'll have an update on their condition very shortly. We will take a moment, though. Can you please, if you want to use the bathroom, if you want to go and get merchandise, if you would like to go and get something to eat or drink, now's your time to do it. If you want to go through the pits, have a look at the other, all that kind of stuff. Like, here's some things to keep busy. We're giving you notice that there's time is going to be allowed, because we do have to clean up the track and we have to look after those people in the cars. And am I allowed to swear on this, by the way, Matt?
Absolutely.
So, and then the other commentators on the start line, he just talks at the top and he's like, fuck me, that's bad. Oh, fuck, someone's got to be dead, into the mic. Right? Now, I don't care what he thinks, because obviously he wasn't thinking. You don't do that. So one, we've got children at this event. But two, no one wants to think that someone's dying at the other end of the track. So that's a terrible thing to do. You've got to keep everyone feeling safe and that they know what's coming next. It could just be something as simple as the lights aren't working. Tell them it's going to be a 10-minute break so they can go to the toilet. Tell them it's going to be a 5-minute break so they can go and get a drink. But your job as a commentator is to keep that show rolling along nice and smoothly. So every spectator, competitor, worker at the track feels like, yeah, you know what? I have got 5 minutes. I can run to the loo now.
Yep.
Yeah, don't ever play into the drama. But if you want to get involved, I have never, ever heard of any motorsport venue who will turn away a volunteer. Willowbank is advertising right now on Seek if anyone wants to go and volunteer there. Normally you'll get paid. Don't think you're going to retire on the money. It might be $50 or $100 a day and they'll feed you. But if you want the best seat in the house, you can end up on the start line. You can end up in the commentary box. You can end up, in the scrutineering and get right up close and personal every single vehicle that comes through. But yeah, don't wait to be invited. Every single motorsport venue is looking for more volunteers, and it doesn't matter what your skill set is. They're after someone to run lunches around. They're after someone to help with first aid. They're after someone to clean. Like, if you can use a broom, you've got a job. There's so many opportunities to get involved. And so I've very much stepped back from motorsport commentary these days, just because I've got a lot on my plate. But one track I still love to go out to is T-Pon, which is my local speedway track. And it is the ultimate grassroots racing. It's a dirt track, middle of nowhere. They only have your saloon cars. And they've got everything. Like, they've got a juniors class of 10 and 12-year-olds who are out there racing on a Sunday. And those kids are amazing. But you see them getting out of the car and they're so tiny and they've got these giant boots on and they're just glorious to watch. And it's then through to every age category you can imagine and every type of car you can imagine. And when we talk about there was one guy there, his name's Corey. He's got a little Gemini. And he went into scrutineering with an engine block sitting on the floor of the passenger side as his ballast so that it would hold the weight down and not roll the car. Nothing holding that engine block in. So had he rolled, that would have just been flying around in the car with him. But he thought that was fine. Like, they obviously, during scrutineering, told him to take that out. But
I mean,
to be clear,
it's a no from me. And even
it's a hard no.
It's a no from me.
but those guys, the camaraderie there, and it's nothing for the president of the club, Captain Kirk. He said to me, "Lara, you want a shot? Here's the keys. Off you go for a drive." And like, that's the kind of racing it is. They want people to get involved, but that doesn't happen without volunteers. Whether that's the person on the gate, Bridget there, taking your money when you come in to spectate, whether it's the Lioness ladies who are if you go to T-Pon, please go to T-Pon, folks. But they do a burgers and they do a special of the day. So it might be homemade spaghetti bolognese or a baked potato with all the toppings. And then they do a themed cupcake of the weekend. And it's a glorious thing what the Lioness ladies do. But then they have someone else operating the bar, and then there's someone else being the flag marshals. And yeah, they will always take more volunteers. So if you want to get involved, Don't wait for an invite. Get out there.
Well, it's fantastic that we've been discussing this particular passion of yours. And incidentally, we've actually discussed a couple of passions there, the owning of the vehicles and doing the commentary. But those aren't your only skill sets. You also write new podcasts.
I am. So here's my thing about cars. Yeah, I love being around those madly passionate people, and motorsport commentary's allowed me to do that for years. And I love writing the stories about the weird and the wonderful, and those people who have very cool car stories, you know. But my real passion with cars, for me, cars growing up, that was my ticket to freedom. I lived on a cattle station in the middle of nowhere, and if you didn't have a car, you didn't have a life. And so for me, cars were my independence. They were my freedom. They were my safety. If someone had an accident, I wanted to be able to drive and get assistance. You know, cars were also self-expression. Like if you grew up in rural Australia, you could tell so much about someone by their car, particularly in the BNS era. When I grew up, they don't do BNSs anymore.
Yeah. Oh, don't they? Oh my God.
Not properly. There's no such thing as a wet ticket anymore.
Oh.
I'm
It's
old.
me on the wet ticket, me.
So, you know, back then you could look at a ute and you could tell where it was from, if it was owned by a man or a woman. You could, you know, there were all these things you could just tell about a car because people got to put that self-expression into their car. And I'm so saddened now when I meet people. I'm like, oh, it's just a car. It's just to get from A to B. And I'm like, that's because you got the wrong car. And I talk to women in particular, and I'll say to them, you know, what do you mean it's just a car? She's like, it's just a car. It's just to get. I can't get excited about it. I'm like, did you choose this car? Oh no, my husband chose it. And I went, all right. Have you ever loved a car? Oh yeah, I used to have a Jeep and it was wonderful and I loved it. It would go here and it would go there and I could fit all my stuff in it. My dog would come and, you know, and so now you're driving a Prius. My husband thought it was a better choice. Okay, so we either have to get rid of the Prius or the husband, but we need to find this passion for cars again, because I've met women who have stayed in abusive relationships because they didn't know how to put fuel in the car and they were worried if they left, they only had one tank of fuel to leave with. You know, and it was pure, there's nothing stopping them except a lack of knowledge. And there's so much about cars that we take for granted, because who has ever actually taught you how to put fuel in a car? Or did you just kind of pick it up via osmosis watching your parents and then you hoped? And that only works if you have a parent who's into cars. There's so many people who haven't taken a job because where the job is doesn't have public transport. So how would they get around? They haven't gone on the adventure. I had that 70-tote Chevy pickup truck, and I moved to Halls Creek in the Kimberley from Brisbane. And I was actually working at a Queensland Raceway at the time. And I said to a friend of mine, oh, I'm going to drive the Chevy across. And they're like, you can't. It's a 1972 Chevy pickup truck. It's a long way. I mean, how will you drive there? I was like, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive a kilometre. And when I've done that one, I'm just going to drive another kilometre. And once I finish that second kilometre, I guess I'm going to drive another. And like, I just...
Yeah. It's going to involve the accelerator. It's going to involve the rear view mirror. It's going to involve...
And when I've done about 500 of those, I'm going to pull up and get some fuel, something to eat, you know. But they were just mortified that anyone would drive a car of that age across Australia. And I used to do it all the time. But because the reason I could do that, and I've never had any fear of it, is because I have some basic skills around, and I'm not a mechanic by any means, but I knew how to prevent a lot of things. I knew some basic maintenance. I knew some basic things to pack in the car. And that was to look after the car. But more importantly, I had some strategies around telling someone when I was leaving and when to expect me, which road I was taking. If I haven't arrived by this time, here's what I want you to do. It was also things like I always have water in my car. I always have some muesli bars in my car. I know not to leave my car if I break down. You know, I have some basic strategies in place that if I get stuck beside the road for 3 or 4 days, I'm okay with this because I have everything in the car that I need. So for me, it's not a huge deal. But my passion is, how do I share that with other people so that they can also go out and seek those adventures? They can also be proud of the car they drive. They can also have that self-expression. And for a long time, so I had my own accessories brand and still do. But I'd go to car shows and I'd set up and I would be inundated by women who were like, my boyfriend won't let me make a major change to the car, but I can hang an air freshener or I can change my seat covers. Things that didn't require tools and permanent modification, they were super keen to do because it made it their car. And I think there's so much opportunity for us to do that, because you spend a lot of time in your car.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, yeah, I read something, the other day, and looking, obviously this is changing now with the anti-car, and there is, like, people are anti-car because of the environmental side of things. That's, the legitimacy of that is a discussion in and of itself. And even if the car was as evil as they say, like you said, you actually got to balance it with human freedom.
Yeah.
A vehicle, and no jokes, it sounds, you not dismissive, but we kind of take that for granted. But you remove the car and you watch how much human freedom goes.
Well, and this is my passion, is a lot. I do a lot of public speaking, and I try and share a lot of video content, and I write for a number of magazines, because yeah, a car can get you from A to B, but one, it's a significant investment for most people. If you're spending 10 to 50 grand on a vehicle, you want to make sure you're looking after it, because that's a huge asset in your finances. But secondly, whether or not you trust your car and you feel safe in your car can determine if you have a different social group, if you go on an outdoor adventure, if you can try different accommodation that's more affordable but has a longer commute. It could mean a new job. It could mean your children being able to get to sporting lessons or school safely. There's so many things that a car enables in our life that it just gets taken for granted. And the logistics of trying to work that around public transport, particularly if you live anywhere outside of a city, is heartbreaking a lot of the time. So this is where I want to be able to share what are my most basic tips. What are the really safe, simple, and stylish bits of advice you can take on so that you get to use that car as the tool it's designed. Now, if you can, if you can walk outside and go, oh, hello, sweetheart, like I missed you. And I do this to my cars all the time because I love them, right? And to me, when I look at them, I don't see a set of four wheels that's going to take me somewhere. I actually see that's my ticket to employment. That's my ticket to business. That's my ticket to a circle of friends who get me. That's my self-expression. That's my ability to feel safe. And so I think it's a huge opportunity. And it's not just for women. You'd be amazed how many car shows I've been at. And I've had young men who haven't had a male role model, or even who have, but it hasn't been someone from a car scene. And they're like, I bought this car and I really like it and I'd like to enter in the car show. How do I wash it properly to do that? What do I need to do to prepare my car? And they won't ask an alpha male because they'll feel silly or they'll feel intimidated. They won't ask, and they won't ask the grid girl, promo girl, because they're pretty, right? They're there to be pretty. They're not there because they necessarily know everything. Having said, I know a lot of very beautiful, very wise women in the car industry, but they're kind of sitting there and saying, well, hang on, I don't want to ask the girl who's here for her looks, and I don't want to ask those blokey blokes over there. So where is a safe space for those guys to learn? But, there's young men who've grown up with a single mum, or fathers who aren't interested. It can be challenging for them to find information. And my one criticism of the automotive industry, we are horrible people sometimes. When people come to us wanting to learn, we belittle them. And there's so much toxic masculinity attached to this industry that people are like, yeah, drive a Camry, you loser. I love Camrys for what they give people. Every car has its purpose. The new MGs, not so much. I can't see them sponsoring me anytime soon. Like whatever car spins your wheels, if it's a new MG, I'm sorry for you, but you do you. So there's all this opportunity for people to actually have those lives. If you're an introverted hermit who wants to stay at home, I got nothing for you. I have this theory that you are your car. So if you're a, fun surfer and you want to be in the great outdoors and you want, to go and play those activities, then you're going to have a fun kind of convertible kind of car. If you're a very practical, hands-on, tradey kind of person, then you're going to have a practical, hands-on, tradey kind of ute with, all of the storage and so on that you might need. If your priority in life is family, you're going to have someone with 7 seats. If your priority in life is to go fast, you're going to have the sports car. So you can tell a lot about a person by what they drive, and you can tell even more about a person by how they look after what they drive.
Oh, absolutely. And then you've got, the different different times in your life then too, because when you're young, you want to go fast, when you have a family. But look, could you tell us about, like, you know, you're a chief executive officer as well. So besides being can I say it, a bogan petrol head, you're also a chief executive officer.
I'm not a bogan. I don't own a Holden or a Ford.
Oh, okay. So what defines? All right, let's dive into that really quickly without going. What defines a bogan and a petrol head?
Yeah, petrol head, definitely. There's bogans, there's cashed up bogans. Yeah, I don't know. I just
No. Vehicle. I don't mean generally. I'm talking. I'm talking in the sense.
Do you want the list of cars that bogans drive?
Yeah, bogan. Right. No. So let's talk in the conceptual framework of
Commodores and Falcons.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Sorry, it's a very short list.
Okay, so say that I had a friend who always.
Oh, I'm very proud of you.
Sorry.
I'm very proud of you. You had a friend.
Yeah. Well, and for them, it's media worthy actually. Like my wife, you know, I've got a head like a drop me pie. My wife calls my personality contraceptive, so a form of contraceptive. But yeah, nice of her, isn't it? But
it reflects on her, not you.
Yeah, that's what I said. You know, I'd rather have those two characters. Only bad taste in men. So, which is the characteristic quite clearly that she has. But let's just say a chap had a hankering for a 1968 MGB in British racing green colours. What would that say about his personality from someone who's into those kind of categorical frameworks? But he never actually owned one. He always just hankered for one.
Oh, I'd say he hankered to be high maintenance. Well, MGB is going to be high maintenance. It's going to need a constant attention. It's going to need. It's not super practical. It's not going to be super enjoyable on a moment by moment basis, and it's going to be very high maintenance. Right. If I was the wife of such a chap, I would be questioning life's choices.
Okay, right.
But it also probably.
I mean, whoever that person was.
yeah. I mean, who would know such a friend? But yeah, like that's, and people who are into vintage cars, which I am. One, you've probably got more money than sense, and two, you're prepared to suffer. Because vintage cars, they don't have great suspension, they don't have aircon, they don't have power steering, they don't have electric windows, so you're willing to suffer through the driving experience for that purest moment where your bum really is this far from the highway, and you get to smell every bit of roadkill that comes in the car and every bug, and there's that. But you're also a bit of a poser, so you get to look good with it, but you're going to be constantly in maintenance.